Exposed. The sinister urban legend haunting my city, 12 terrifying secrets I ignored. Sarah's heart hammered as she stumbled through the still streets of her Chicago suburb, shadows creeping like sinister fingers up her spine. The air was thick, a stifling quiet enveloping her, broken only by the distant howl of the wind and the unsettling rustle of leaves. The watcher, a name that had become a ghastly whisper among the locals. Children dared each other to speak it, their laughter masking deep-seated fear. But now, the dread gripped Sarah as tightly as the chill that slid down her neck like icy fingers. Lily had always been imaginative, weaving fantastical tales over bedtime stories. But now, her fascination with this haunting figure, a lurking shadow said to prey on unsuspecting families, was heavy with an unsettling reality. Sarah had brushed it aside, convinced it was just a childish obsession. Yet with every night that stretched on after her shifts, every symbol painted ominously across her neighbor's walls, a gnawing anxiety twisted within her. They were safe, she told herself, surrounded by good people, her neighbors. Faces she recognized. But their gazes had shifted. A neighbor who previously greeted her with warmth now looked at her sidelong, mouth tight, with unspoken words. The hushed murmurs behind closed doors sent a ripple of paranoia through the once familiar streets. This autumn, darkness fell early. Too early. Sarah's unease deepened under the weight of all the oddities. Sounds that shattered the night, rustling that crept outside her windows like whispered threats. The nightly patrols of her community watch were not enough to quell the rising tide of her fears, nor were the appeasing words of the police. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. It was on a routine evening, exhausted from her shift at the hospital and desperate for a moment to collapse, that Sarah realized Lily was gone. Just gone. She'd sent her little girl to the store for snacks, her mind fogged by fatigue as she waved goodbye. But minutes turned to agonizing seconds, and dread consumed her as her calls for Lily echoed off the unforgiving streetlights. Panic surged through Sarah, each heartbeat a reminder of how quickly terror can entwine with the mundane. She sprinted into the dark, the shadows stretching malevolently around her, hiding secrets she wished hadn't stirred to life. Where could her sweet girl have gone? Had she believed the stories too? The oppressive silence surrounded her, amplifying every crack of a twig snapping. Was it just the wind, or something darker lurking behind? As she stood there, breath fogging in the cold, the facade of her civilization crumbled. The once friendly faces of her neighbors transformed into masks of secrecy, eyes averted, whispers weaving through the air like cigarette smoke. The truth clawed up her throat like a scream ready to burst forth. What was really happening in her neighborhood? And in that moment, something shifted behind her. The feeling of being watched coiled tighter, shadows revealing nothing, yet the growing sense of dread hung thick and tangible. The night wasn't over. Not yet, and neither was the search for her daughter. Just as she turned, ready to reclaim what was hers, a door creaked open nearby, an invitation she never meant to accept. A silhouette loomed inside, beckoning. Would she walk into the trap of the watcher, or find a truth that could shatter the illusion of her safe little world? The figure in the doorway shifted slightly, the silhouette etched against the dim light spilling from within. Sarah's stomach twisted. The moment felt strange, almost wrong, yet a desperate urge pushed her forward. That was Lily's name echoing inside her mind, a soft plea that could not be ignored. Hello? Her voice trembled as she stepped closer. No answer, just the soft whisper of the cold wind through the trees, carrying the faintest trace of something sweet, almost like Lily's favorite candy. The ache of worry clawed deeper in her chest. With a deep breath, Sarah crossed the threshold into the home. Inside, the air grew thick and still, heavy with the scent of decay. Dust motes danced in the scant light, and the silence engulfed her like an unfriendly embrace. Lily? She called again, her heart pounding with every syllable. The house was dark, the walls lined with eerie photographs. Faces of people she'd never seen stared back, their eyes appearing too wide, too hungry. Shadows shifted in the corners, making her skin crawl. The front door creaked shut behind her, sealing her in with the encroaching dread that a faint rustling pulled her toward a narrow hallway. Sarah moved cautiously, her breath hitching, every instinct screaming at her to turn back. Yet Lily's absence drummed in her ears louder than her fear, pushing her down the darkened corridor, where the light barely penetrated. At the end of the hall, another door stood ajar, an inviting crack of light spilling into the gloom. She approached, the floor creaking underfoot, and peered inside. The room was small, its walls lined with bizarre symbols, reminders of warnings she had ignored. The whispers of the neighbors flooded back what had they known that she didn't. Then she saw it the outline of a child. A doll, she thought at first, but the unmistakable curve of Lily's outline sent a wave of relief crashing into the depths of her heart. Lily, she gasped, rushing forward. As she moved closer, the child turned. It wasn't Lily. It was a girl with hollow eyes and a vacant stare, wearing a dress almost identical to Lily's favorite outfit. She stood completely still, as if waiting for something, for someone. Panic rose within Sarah. The child was there, but something about her felt off sinister. The girl raised her hand, pointing toward the corner of the room. Sarah strained her ears, hearing low murmurs. "Join us." The girl's lips formed the words, but no sound echoed. The air turned cold. Goosebumps prickled Sarah's skin. Who are you?" She stepped back, and the girl's expression changed, freezing into a grimace that seemed to slice through the darkness. "Help us," the whispers morphed, growing louder, layering with an unsettling melody that twisted her gut with fear. It felt as if shadows were spiraling around her, whispering secrets only they knew. "I'm searching for my daughter," Sarah shouted, her voice trembling, desperation thick in the air. "Have you seen her?" The girl's eyes flickered with something fear, recognition. Then, the shadows behind her moved, coalescing into shapes that lurked just beyond the edges of the light, wretched forms stretching towards Sarah. A sudden crash echoed from somewhere in the house. The girl glanced over her shoulder, her face twisting in a mixture of fear and delight, as if the crash were an invitation. "Join us," she murmured again. But now the shadows seemed to beckon, pulling Sarah toward the doorway with a force she couldn't resist. With a scream, she spun and bolted back toward the hallway. No, I need Lily." As she ran, the whispers grew into piercing cries, taunting her retreat. The walls began to close in, the very fabric of the house shuddering around her. She reached the front door, slamming against it with all her weight, but it wouldn't budge. The shadows were crawling closer, growing thicker, their whispers now a cacophony of laughter that echoed her greatest fears. In that moment, a chilling thought gripped her. What if the Watcher had taken not just her child, but every child? What if this house was a part of something darker? Suddenly, a single, striking voice cut through the chaos. "If you want her back, you must choose." Just as the whispers fell silent, the door creaked open. The space outside loomed with ominous darkness. Could it be freedom? Or was it another trap designed by the Watcher? Dread clutched her as she stood on the threshold. The choice swirled in her mind. What path would lead her back to the light and to Lily? Would she step out and face the unknown, or would she turn back into the hungry shadows within? The night was just beginning. As Sarah stood at the precipice of the doorway, her heart raced wildly. The air outside felt heavier, almost sentient, as if waiting for her to decide. She peered into the abyss, a vast expanse of darkness filled with the echoes of fear. Was this truly freedom, or was it merely a continuation of the nightmare? The whispers slithered back into her mind, hissing promises and threats. "Join us," they beckoned. But who were you? The memory of the girl with hollow eyes haunted her, a chilling reminder of the choices laid before her. Desperate, Sarah took a step back, her instincts screaming. Every fiber in her being urged her to reclaim her daughter. But at what cost? She thought of the warning her neighbors had shared, hushed words about the house, about children vanishing without a trace. She had scoffed at their fears. Now those fears morphed into a reality sharper than any blade. The shadows lunged toward her, insistent and teeming with an insidious hunger. She backed away, her foot catching on the threshold, sending her sprawling back into the foyer. It felt like a trap, the floor beneath her trembling as if the house itself resented her presence. The front door swung ominously, inviting her to run while she still could, but images of Lily flickered through Sarah's mind, the sound of her laugh, the warmth of her tiny hands. There had to be a way to save her, to confront whatever had taken her. "No more," she shouted, surprising herself with the authority in her voice. It was a plea, a challenge to the darkness. Fueled by a surge of adrenaline, she lunged back toward the hallway and the strange room that had housed the girl. The shadows writhed like snakes, but Sarah pushed forward, determination replacing her fear. As she entered the room again, the atmosphere shifted. The girl was gone, replaced by the faintest outline of Lily barely visible, a whisper of a memory lingering in the space between fear and hope. "Mommy," it chimed, a sweet melody tainted by a sorrowful note. Suddenly, an icy wind swirled, ripping through the room. The symbols on the walls pulsed with a malevolent energy, drawing her attention. They writhed beneath her gaze, whispering secrets in a language lost to time. Sarah's eyes widened as she read fragments: "Sacrifice. Choose. The Watcher is waiting." Her breath hitched as the darkness deepened around her, a black tide closing in. She needed answers, and she needed them fast. "What do I have to do? How do I find my daughter?" she called, her voice trembling. In response, the shadows twisted and formed into the ghastly figure of the girl again. "You must face the Watcher. But beware, the price may be too high." The word struck Sarah like a bolt. The urgency of finding Lily mixed with the dread of confronting this entity, pushing her toward the threshold of sacrifice. Time twisted in that moment, seconds stretched as dread coiled tighter. The door loomed behind her like a maw, a path back to safety, but also possibly a route filled with its own traps. "Choose," the girl screeched, her voice splitting into the cacophony of whispers, now swarming around Sarah. "Join us or be lost forever." Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, the choices crushing yet clear. Was freedom worth the risk? Could she face the Watcher? In an explosion of courage and terror, she took a step toward the door, but the shadows hissed. "Once you've seen, you cannot return." And in that moment of hesitation, a powerful grip seized her wrist, pulling her back. She turned, gasping, faced with the swirling void of darkness and the sinister smile of the girl. "No," she screamed, wrestling against the encroaching forms. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. She couldn't falter now. Clenching her jaw, Sarah took a breath and shouted, "I choose to fight." As the words left her lips, the shadows roared in fury, thrashing dangerously like a storm. The air thickened, charged with impending violence, challenging her resolve. Outside, a sudden crack of thunder echoed through the night, shaking the foundation of the house. But something else caught her. Attention, echoes of laughter, familiar laughter, mixed with cries for help. Was it Lily? Sarah's heart shattered at the thought, and she drove forward, determined to uncover the truth buried within the darkness. What if the Watcher wasn't what she expected? What if confronting it would alter everything she knew about her daughter and herself? In that darkness, answers loomed, but so did terrifying revelations that threatened to erase all hope. Where would her choice take her next? The whispers surged, a wailing storm that echoed in Sarah's ears. Each chilling sound seemed to rip through her, pulling at her very core, daring her to succumb to despair. She steadied herself, her heartbeat hammering as the shadows writhed and thrashed around her. The girl's figure melted back into the darkness, leaving Sarah alone, facing the insatiable void. "Mommy!" The voice, no, not a voice, a chorus, the faded cries of children, mingled with laughter that was almost her daughter's. Sarah shook her head, slamming a mental door against the invasive thoughts. She couldn't let them distract her. The Watcher was out there, lurking in the folds of darkness, waiting for her. With a determined breath, she turned her gaze back to the walls marked with sinister symbols. They glimmered with an otherworldly light, a beckoning promise entwined with an unspoken horror. Each symbol whispered fragments from her subconscious, knitting together memories long buried, forbidden thoughts ignited by fear. "Choose." Her mind replayed the girl's words with a mocking edge. She had to choose what? Fight against the Watcher or join the eternal darkness? Sarah's stomach turned, nausea mixing with the chilling air. Taking a deep breath, She advanced, her footsteps echoing in defiance against the relentless dark. Each step brought her closer to what lay beyond the threshold. The shadows cried out, chaotic and desperate, but determination burned inside her. "Show yourself," Sarah called, her voice cutting through the din. "I'm not afraid of you." The room quaked at her challenge, the shadows condensing into a singular mass. In an instant, the air shimmered, then the Watcher emerged. It stood cloaked in darkness, an impossibility of shifting forms, eyes like bottomless pits peering into her soul. "Sarah," it hissed, the name escaping in a gust like dead leaves in autumn. "You have chosen, and I accept your offer." Her heart plummeted. What offer? Was this some twisted game? "What do you want from me?" "Your love, for the girl is pure, yet it binds you and breaks you. Sacrifice it, and power unfolds." The Watcher's voice was a cacophony of whispers, overlapping and distorting. Each syllable wrapped around her, a vice tightening. Sacrifice? Panic twisted in her gut. What did that mean? What price must she pay? Would it be her love for Lily, or something darker? No. The realization struck like lightning. "I won't give you anything." But the shadows surged around her, tightening like chains, coiling to squeeze the breath from her lungs. Each whispered temptation tugged at her heart, tearing at the fabric of her resolve. Scenes flashed before her, Lily laughing, her sweet smile, the warmth of her tiny hands. "Save her," the Watcher urged, a detestable falsehood wrapped in honeyed tones. "Join us, and you can hold her again." The vision of Lily brought tears to Sarah's eyes. Rage ignited, burning away the shadows that threatened to drown her. "I won't let you have her. I'll find another way." In that moment of fierce defiance, she felt a crackling surge of energy rise within her. Was this the power of love? Was this the price, standing strong against a malevolent force? With renewed spirit, Sarah lunged forward, pushing through the shadows. She felt their claws scrape against her skin, pulling at her, but her heart roared louder. "Let me through." A deafening roar erupted. The Watcher recoiled, rage fueling its form. "You will not escape," it screamed, filling the air with static dread, but Sarah managed to wrench herself free, barreling back toward the doorway. As she stumbled into the hallway, the darkness howled angrily behind her. Breathless and shaking, she glanced over her shoulder, heart pounding with new fear. The shadows slithered back, angry serpents in the night, whispering threats that made her skin prickle. Had she truly escaped? Or was this merely the beginning of a more profound horror waiting in the dark? "Choose wisely, Sarah." The Watcher's voice echoed through the corridor, hollow and haunting as it faded into nothingness. And there, deep in the recesses of the house, something shifted, a movement caught her eye, something far more sinister than the shadows. What awaited her next? Would she uncover Lily's fate, or would the truth be darker than she could bear? The hallway felt endless, a dark tunnel that whispered secrets Sarah had long feared. The flickering light from a distant bulb barely pierced the gloom, creating dancing shadows on the walls that seemed to stretch and claw at her. Her heart raced, a relentless drum echoing in her ears. She pressed on, adrenaline fueling her desperate need to escape, to find Lily. But each step carried her deeper into a suffocating silence that was heavier than the darkness. The air thickened, wrapping around her like a damp blanket, chilling her to the bone. She could feel the Watcher's presence, a malevolent specter lurking at the edges of her vision, waiting for her to falter. "Lily," she called out, voice trembling. There was no reply, only the distant echo of her own desperation. Panic clawed at her throat. She couldn't let it win. She had to believe. The shadows coiled along the floor, whispering in taunting susurrations. "You can save her, just let go. Join us." They twisted into shapes, reminding her of the girl, the laughter that had twisted into something sinister. "No," Sarah shouted, shaking her head forcefully. "I won't betray her." Suddenly, a door creaked open at the end of the hall, enticing her with a sliver of light. Was it hope, or another trap? Her feet moved against her will, drawn to it, as if an invisible force guided her. Inside, she found a narrow room lit by candles that flickered with a life of their own, the flames dancing like frantic spirits. The walls were plastered with tattered photographs, face after face of lost children, their eyes wide with fear and longing. Each picture seemed to pull at her heart, each face flickering with a faint memory. A cold shiver raced down her spine. "What is this?" she whispered, reaching out to touch the lintel, fingers brushing against a name scrawled underneath a photograph, Chloe 2004. In that moment, a feeling of dread washed over her. What had the Watcher done? Were these the souls lost to its darkness? Did Lily's name linger here, waiting to be discovered? A muffled cry interrupted her, a sound that threaded through the heavy air. The shiver of recognition in her bones sent her racing toward a door at the other end of the room, driven by the desperate urge to save her daughter. Lily. She pushed the door open, breathless with fear. What she found was a small, dimly lit space. In the center, a child-sized bed stood, empty but rumpled, as if recently occupied. The sheets were an unsettling shade of red. "Lily," she called again, this time with more authority. A sudden and piercing silence enveloped her, so thick it felt like a blanket wrapping around her skull. Then, she heard it again, a soft sobbing, muffled by the walls. It came from behind an old wardrobe, looming like a dark sentinel. With shaking hands, she shoved the heavy doors aside, heart racing, heart pounding in her throat. The sobbing stopped abruptly. "Who is there?" Sarah's voice trembled, fear sinking deep into her gut. "Lily, is that you?" A figure scrambled into the dim light, hair wild, eyes wide. A girl no older than Lily, but her face was distorted in terror, features unsettlingly familiar. "Help me," the girl whimpered, glancing back toward shadows that seemed to swirl and breathe life behind her. Before Sarah could reach out, the air shifted. The room narrowed, twisting as if the walls were closing in. The girl's expression morphed into one of horror as a low growl echoed from the darkness, the shadows coalescing into familiar shapes. "Sarah," whispered the Watcher, emerging once more, eyes gleaming with malice. "You shouldn't have come here. Your love has damned you." Each word struck Sarah like a fist. She felt the weight of her decisions bearing down, the chilling implications wrapping around her like chains. Time felt suspended as the malevolence grew, the shadows eager for another soul. "Now, choose," it hissed, dark energy crackling around the figure, wrapping tighter, pressing against her. Sarah's heart raced. She couldn't let her courage waver now. "I won't abandon anyone," she screamed, the resolve in her voice a thin shield against the onslaught of terror. "I will find a way." But as she spoke, the girl's face twisted into a silent scream. The shadows surged forward, dragging her back into the cold embrace of darkness. In that frozen moment, remorse washed over Sarah. Did her refusal to accept the darkness seal their fates? What price must she pay to save not just Lily, but everyone lost to the horror of the Watcher? The walls echoed with a haunting farewell scream as the shadows grew denser around her. And from the depths of the darkness, a chilling promise emerged. "You will learn soon enough. Once you delve deeper, would Sarah uncover the truth behind the Watcher's hold, or would despair claim her and those she loved forever?" The darkness tightened around Sarah, every breath feeling like a gamble. She barely registered the girl's terrified eyes before the shadows swallowed her whole, the whispered cries fading into a sinister lullaby that echoed through the room. Heart pounding, Sarah stumbled backward, searching desperately for an exit, for anything that might lead her back into the light. "Stop this," she shouted, her voice breaking, trembling on the edge of despair. The walls seemed to pulse, alive with malice, mocking her feeble resistance. The flickering candles flickered again as if in response to her fear, their flames shuddering at the threat of the encroaching dark. "Love has brought you here," Sarah the Watcher's voice curled around her like smoke, dark and suffocating. "And love will be your undoing." She shook her head, trying to block out the chilling vibrations of its words. Doubt began to seep into her mind. Was it all for nothing? Would she lose Lily to this malevolent force? Panic surged inside her, igniting a primal urge to flee. Spinning around, she plunged through the door she had just opened, racing back into the hallway. But the once familiar corridor twisted before her. The walls glimmered with a sinister sheen, bending and warping as if mocking her attempts to escape. "Lily, where are you?" she shouted, but the silence seemed more alive than before, wrapping itself around her like a predator closing in. The shadows slithered closer, whispering promises of freedom and surrender. "Just let go, Sarah. There is no escape. You'll never find her among the lost. A cold gust rattled around her, whispers spiraling into laughter that echoed off the walls. She fought the urge to give in. No, she couldn't let that wretched creature win. She wouldn't betray their bond. Keeping her focus sharp, Sarah summoned every ounce of strength she possessed. Running blindly down the hall, she reached for the faint glimmer of light in the distance, each step fueled by the thought of Lily, her daughter, somewhere in that abyss. Suddenly, something brushed against her leg, and she looked down, eyes wide with dread. A face, pale and hollowed, stared up at her from the shadows, mouth stretching wide in a silent scream. As she stumbled back, her feet tangled up in something cold and clammy, hands reaching from the walls, grasping for her. Lunging forward, she wrenched herself free, hands raw and trembling. The face melted into darkness, but not before a ghostly whisper reached her. "Save us, join us, get away," she screamed, shaking her head violently. But the words echoed back, twisting in her mind. What if they were telling the truth? What if all she had to do was let go? Those thoughts clawed at her, and she stumbled, almost losing her balance. The hallway shifted again, and an overwhelming sense of hopelessness washed over her. Where was Lily? Fear clawed at her insides as she felt the shadows press on her, closing in from all directions. In a moment of clarity, she realized, to find Lily, she had to confront the Watcher. It was the only way to fight back. This was a battle of wills, and she couldn't be afraid anymore. Turning back toward the darkness behind her, Sarah took a deep breath. "I will not let you take me," she shouted, the walls trembling at her defiance. "I'll find you, Lily. I will bring you home." The shadows rippled angrily, the room vibrating with malevolence as the Watcher's voice boiled to a rage. "How much are you willing to pay for her, Sarah? Let the darkness show you." The ground shifted beneath her, a dark chasm opening at her feet, its depths swirling with mist and whispers. Sarah's heart thundered as she faced the abyss. If she jumped, would it lead her to Lily or to her doom? In that moment, she hesitated. What if this was a trap? But the walls echoed with the sounds of countless lost souls, a mournful chorus resonating with despair. Was this how it ended? With fear? With a leap of faith, Sarah plunged into the dark as she fell. The weight of her choices closed in, and she could feel that sinister promise haunting her still. You will learn soon enough what awaited her at the bottom. Would she find Lily, or would she become just another lost soul? The darkness awaited her answer, pulsing with an ominous hunger. The fall seemed endless. Sarah's heart pounded against her ribs, each beat echoing in the void. The air tasted stale, as if every breath she gasped was steeped in despair. Her senses screamed for her to wake up from this nightmare, but she was very much awake, and the darkness was not done with her yet. Suddenly, she landed on something solid. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs, and she lay there for a moment, dazed and confused. As she blinked, the darkness coalesced around her, thick and smothering, but enough light broke through the shadows for her to make out her surroundings. She was in a cavernous space, walls slick with moisture and covered in grotesque, twisting shadows that danced as if they were alive. The floor was littered with remnants of unnameable things, crushing beneath her feet like brittle bones. A cold chill wrapped around her, whispering dread. There was no exit, only a suffocating silence that surged and receded like the tide. "Lily," she called, her voice wavering, lost in the silence. Just then, she heard a sound that twisted her stomach into knots. Soft whimpers. A familiar sound, drenched in fear. "Mommy!" The cry came again, more distant this time, echoing through the darkness. "Lily!" She tore off in the direction of the sound, her heart racing. The walls seemed to lean closer, almost pressing against her, as though they were listening. "Mommy!" The call brushed against her skin like a cold breath, slipping through the shadows to guide her. Sarah's determination fueled her feet, but as she ran, a shadow lunged at her, a figure with hollow eyes and cracked lips, mouth stretching into a gaping smile that seemed to beckon her closer. She stumbled backward, breath catching in her throat. "What are you?" she dared to ask. "I'm what you fear most," it hissed back, its voice a rattling whisper. "This place is home to your regrets, your despair. Join us. It is so much easier than fighting." "No," she shouted, shaking her head. "I want to give in. I need my daughter." The figure lunged again, and Sarah fled, But the cavern twisted with every step she took, reshaping and reshuffling her path. Her legs burned with exertion as she pressed onward, the cries of lost souls reverberating in her mind. The walls trembled with laughter, echoing her hopelessness, but she pressed forward despite the despair. Lily! Another cry came, this time more urgent, more desperate. The walls shifted again, folding away to reveal a narrow passageway that pulsed with a faint glow. Was it a way out, or another trap? With no time to hesitate, she darted toward it, praying that this path would lead her to her daughter. A rush of wind blasted against her as she entered, nearly knocking her off balance, but fear kept her grounded. The cries grew louder, closer. In her heart, hope sparked. "I'm coming, Lily," she yelled, but the shadows crept closer, clawing at her heels, threatening to drag her back into the abyss. Just as she reached the end of the passage, the light flickered and dimmed. She found herself standing in front of a door weathered and twisted, pulsating as if alive. Shadows flicked across its surface, and a deep, guttural voice emanated from the dark beyond. "Do you dare enter, Sarah? Everything has its price, even love." Trembling, Sarah reached for the doorknob, fingers trembling, fears merging and coiling. What lay behind that door? And if she opened it, would she find her daughter, or something worse? All she had to do was turn the knob. Courage surged through her veins, but would it be enough? The darkness pulsed around her, alive with anticipation, waiting to snare her in its clutches once more. Just before she could twist the knob, the whispers hushed, a single question echoing in her mind. What are you willing to sacrifice? With a deep, shuddering breath, she steeled herself, heart racing as her fingers lingered. What would it cost her? Would she pay the ultimate price? And then, she turned the knob. The moment she turned the knob, a cold wind swept through the door, enveloping her in an icy embrace. The door creaked open to reveal a different kind of darkness, a dense fog swirling with whispers that called her name in unsettling harmony. "Sarah, come find us," they beckoned, seductive and sinister. Heart pounding, she stepped through, the world shifting around her like a surreal nightmare. The air stank of something rotten, and as she ventured deeper, the fog thickened, clinging to her like a shroud. Visions danced before her eyes, snippets of regret entwined with shadows of her past. She stumbled through the haze, still chasing the cries, feeling the walls close in tighter with every inch. "Mommy!" The voice was clearer now, almost tangible. "Lily!" Desperation clawed at her throat. She ran, certainty morphing into frantic determination. But with each hurried step, the fog twisted. Forms emerged, faces that loomed with hollow, haunting eyes. Their mouths twisted into cruel smiles, mocking her, whispering half-remembered fears. "You can't escape the price of your failures, Sarah." "Shut up," she shouted, anger flaring for a moment. She refused to listen. The echo of her own voice bounced back mockingly, reminding her of the choices that had led her here, that had brought Lily into danger. The passage opened into a dimly lit space, revealing an old wooden table at its center. On it lay a single object, a tattered, well-worn teddy bear, Lily's favorite. Its staring button eyes glimmered with something unholy, as if they held secrets even darker than the shadows enclosing her. "Mom!" The plea was agonized now. "Lily!" She cried again, her voice quaking. She reached for the bear, but the moment her fingers brushed its fuzzy surface, the laughter returned, filling the air with mocking glee. "Do you recognize this, Sarah? Life's cruel comedy." The guttural voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere. "You think you can save her from what you've created? You have to sacrifice something dear." "Something dear?" she repeated, mind racing. The world around her shifted, blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. "I'd give anything for her." "Would you?" The laugh was sharp, biting into her resolve. "Even your freedom?" Suddenly, the atmosphere changed, a palpable heaviness pressed down, as if the realization was crashing upon her. The walls pulsed, and Sarah felt panic rise within her. She bit her lip hard enough to taste blood, fighting back the feeling of certainty that swept over her. "I won't give in," she shouted defiantly. But the heaviness in her chest only grew, tightening like a vice. Shadows crawled closer, fingers of darkness reached for her, wrapping around her ankles, dragging her down to the floor. "Then you will suffer the consequences of your choices." With a final surge of determination, She tore her gaze away from the teddy bear. Beneath the oppressive joy of her despair, she spotted a glimmer, a passageway off to the side, darker but beckoning with a promise of escape. "Lily!" she screamed one last time, clinging to the hope of her daughter's safety. She dashed towards the passage, the shadows clawing at her, desperate to keep her confined. Just as she crested the threshold, the laughter reached a terrifying crescendo. An assortment of shadows lunged at her, pawing. She felt icy fingers scrape against her skin, dragging her back. The passage tightened around her, a constricting maw intent on swallowing her whole. In that very moment, uncertainty gripped her heart. Would she find Lily waiting at the end of this dark corridor, or would it be a labyrinth leading her only deeper into despair? As she sprinted forward, breathless and terrified, one thought pierced through the panic. What was she truly willing to risk to save her daughter? Another scream echoed behind her, one more desperate than before. And before she could answer, another door loomed ahead, flickering with a strange light. What lay behind it? Her daughter, or something far worse? The door swung open just enough for her to slip through, the light inside dim, yet pulsating, almost like a heartbeat. It smelled fresher here, like rain-soaked earth, but the light flickered ominously, casting long shadows that darted and danced along the walls. "Lily!" she called out, fear tightening like a snake around her heart. "Where are you?" Silence enveloped her, heavy and thick, broken only by a faint whisper. "Help me," she staggered into the room, trying to make sense of her surroundings. Old furniture lined the edges, draped under sheets like ghostly figures frozen in time. A cracked mirror hung on the wall, reflecting the ghost of her own fear-stricken face, eyes wide and hollow. The whispers grew louder, chaotically layered, but one voice broke through Lily's. "Mommy, please." "Lily, I'm here." Panic fueled her as she stumbled further into the chamber. Her fingers grazed a rough wall, the peeling paint cold and clammy, and she shivered again as another echo of ghostly laughter rang out from the corners, taunting her. Suddenly, the light flickered, and a figure emerged from the shadows, a gaunt silhouette resembling her daughter. "Lily?" The apparition nodded, but its features stretched and twisted, the resemblance eerie yet grotesque. "You have to help me, Mommy." "Where are you?" Sarah reached out, desperate. But as her hand got closer, the figure recoiled, a shrieking wail erupting from it. "You must find the truth, Sarah. It lies within the darkness." With that, the phantom flickered and vanished, leaving only the sound of her own rapid breathing in the encroaching silence. The laughter returned, rich and unhinged, echoing off the walls. "Truth? Darkness?" she murmured, trying to make sense of the jumbled warning. A sudden flash of movement in the far corner caught her eye. She turned to see an ominous shape merging with the shadows, its form indistinguishable, yet somehow familiar. "Mommy, help!" The voice came again, wavering and crushed beneath echoes of laughter. Heart racing, Sarah pulled her courage together and moved towards the darkness, where the shape lingered. The more she moved, the more she felt the oppressive weight of dread clenching her lungs. Every step felt as if she was stepping deeper into a trap, the air thickening around her. "Lily, I'm coming," she shouted, trying to silence the fear that crackled like static in her bones. But the closer she got, the more the shape began to shift, distorting into a twisted version of her daughter, eyes too wide, a mouth that stretched into a grin too big to be human. "You didn't come for me, did you?" "Enough!" Sarah screamed, clenching her fists. Everything she had sacrificed rushed back in overwhelming waves: her job, her sanity, and her heart. "You will let her go." The laugh grew deafening, spinning around her like a cyclone of despair, and shadows lunged at her from every direction, trying to suffocate her. "Your sacrifices mean nothing. You can't change your fate." Just then, a snap pierced through the madness, a taut string breaking. Sarah felt a sudden surge of clarity. "I won't let fear decide my fate." With a feral cry, she charged into the darkness, hands outstretched, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. As several pairs of hands gripped her limbs, she fought back, determined to not only save Lily but reclaim herself. The darkness screamed louder, blinding, threatening to envelop her entirely. Yet amidst the chaos, a single thought anchored her. What was she truly willing to face, to endure? As the hands pulled tighter, She sensed a pull, a memory that could end this nightmare or drive her deeper into despair. Just before she was fully engulfed, a glimmer of light appeared, emerging from an unseen door in the darkness. Would it lead her to freedom? Or was it a cruel trick of the shadows? She dove toward the light, heart pounding, breathing faster, the truth waiting just beyond the threshold. Sarah barreled into the light, her heart pounding as the shadows clawed at her heels. The moment her foot crossed the threshold, everything around her shifted violently. The room exploded with brightness, illuminating the twisted faces of the lost children that had haunted her since she began this nightmare. They faded into the background, drifting off like smoke, leaving only her, standing before a brilliant, ethereal glow. "Mommy!" The voice rang clear, cutting through the echoes of despair and guiding her. It was Lily. "I'm here," Sarah shouted, her voice raw with emotion. She sprinted forward, her breath hitching as she scanned the luminescent chamber. The walls pulsed gently, serene compared to the chaos she fought through. Vibrant, swirling colors danced around her, making the sinister darkness behind her seem even more malevolent. In the center of the room stood a magnificent figure cloaked in light, the Watcher, but not as it had been before. Instead of looming darkness, it sparkled as if made of countless stars, flickering and shifting. "You've come to learn the truth." Its voice resonated through the space, rich and alluring. "Your journey has brought you here, but are you prepared to face the choice it entails?" "Where's my daughter?" Sarah's body trembled with urgency, anger and love bubbling beneath the surface. "I want my daughter back. I will do anything to save her." The Watcher shifted, its glow casting mesmerizing shapes. "To reclaim her, you must confront your deepest fears and acknowledge what lies within you." The brilliance dimmed momentarily, revealing shadows of her past moments of neglect, regret, and uncertainty twisted and blended as if trying to ensnare her. "No," Sarah shouted, shaking her head. "Those don't define me. I want to be afraid of what I've done." "Very well," the Watcher said softly, the shadows retreating back into the far corners as if sensing the strength of her resolve. "But remember, not all paths come without sacrifice. Just tell me what I need to do." Sarah pressed, feeling resolve flood her limbs, a burning flame igniting against the fading shadows. "I will fight for her." As the last vestiges of darkness receded, the Watcher raised a hand, beckoning forth a shimmering doorway. "Step through, and you will know the price you must pay. Step back, and face the loss of all you hold dear." Taking a deep breath, Sarah pushed through the doorway. She plunged, memories swirling rapidly around her. Moments with Lily, laughter and joy, innocent hugs, and bedtime stories that spun into smiles. They echoed painfully in her heart, intermingling with regrets of choices made and fears of inadequacy. Suddenly, she stood on a precipice overlooking a vast void. Dark tendrils writhed below, manifesting all her nightmares. "Mommy," came Lily's fleeting voice, echoing within the chasm of shadows. "Lily," Sarah cried out, straining to see her daughter's figure among the horrors. "I will save you. I promise." The void shifting beneath her felt alive, searching for a weakness, a way to ensnare her. Moments of uncertainty flickered, memories of doubts surged. "What will it take?" she whispered, her heart threatening to shatter. "What must I sacrifice?" "Join us." The shadows cooed once more, their whispers laced with sweet melodies only a child could conjure. "Surrender to us. It's easier now," Sarah yelled, shaking her head fiercely. Her heart surged with powerful defiance. "I want to give in to the fears that have haunted me. I want to let them take Lily." In an instant, the dark tendrils slashed at her, razor sharp, but she felt something shift deep within. Fire ignited where fear once smoldered, and she lunged to the edge of the precipice. "Nothing will take my love away." Boldly, she plunged into the void, determination roaring in her chest. The shadows enveloped her, reaching for her spirit, demanding surrender, but they found only a fierce heart fueled by an undying bond. Then she saw her. Out of the darkness, Lily materialized, a bright beacon amidst the chaos. "Mommy," she cried, reaching out, arms stretching as if connecting them both could momentarily defy the shadows. "Hold on," Sarah shouted, lunging towards her, body warm with the adrenaline of love. She could feel the shadows battling against her, pushing, clawing, but she surged forward, ready to reclaim what was rightfully hers. Join us, the voices slithered through the air, but her heart thudded like a drum. Never, Sarah roared. With one final, fierce push, she snatched Lily into her arms. The darkness erupted around them, thrashing wildly, screaming, howling in agony as their connection illuminated the void. The Watcher's form shimmered in the distance. Its furious gaze flickered one last time before exploding in a shower of shadows, retreating before their union. I'm here, I've got you, Sarah gasped, holding Lily tightly, warmth flooding her chest. The tendrils of darkness pulled away, shrieking, retreating into nothingness. The room burst into light, illuminating all that they had escaped. Lily looked up, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I missed you, she whispered, voice a mix of relief and pain. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I thought I lost you, Sarah choked out, tears cascading down her cheeks in torrents of joy. Together, they stepped back into the light, leaving the shadows behind a final farewell to the darkness. Sarah felt the weight of all her fears lift away, a radiant bond of love binding their hearts. The sun began to rise, casting golden rays across the remnants of their hometown, a place marked forever by fear now glowing with rebirth. Turning to Lily, Sarah smiled widely, eyes sparkling. We're home now, she said, enveloping her daughter in warmth and security. Together, they walked hand in hand, determined to face whatever lay ahead, entwined in courage, love, and the promise of brighter days. This is the end of their story, but it's only the beginning of every new adventure that you need to subscribe now to make sure you don't miss the next exclusive tales of courage and love. Smash that like button now to show your support and help the algorithm reach more fans just like you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Also, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this gripping finale. Your voice matters. Let us hear it.